I am here not to talk about the NIL. I'll save that for another day, notwithstanding the national championship coming up around the corner, which the University of Texas should be playing in, but unfortunately they're not. Republicans were given the opportunity to have control of the United States House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and the White House. Come Monday, President Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, and it can't come a moment too soon. Everybody watching what is happening to our country, what this current administration is doing to our border, to our national security, to our spending, to the state of our culture, to the rule of law on the streets, the use of lawfare, the abuse of power, it can't come fast enough for most Americans. And the question before us right now as Republicans is whether or not we're going to deliver. Last time I checked, the American people did not send us to Washington. They did not give us the majority in the United States House of Representatives, the people's house, to rack up more deficits. But with all due respect to my Republican colleagues, we currently are on track to do just that. We are projected to have $2 trillion deficit next year. As we speak, interest rates going up, our debt getting refinanced at higher interest rates, we have more debt that we're going to have to finance at higher rates, and that means interest is going up. We have a job to do right now to cut spending, cut deficits, and save our country for our children. I would wager that if I looked at the campaign materials or the speeches of every single Republican member of the House of Representatives and the Senate, they all ran on cutting spending and balancing budgets. So the question is going to be before this body, will they do it? I need to clear the record because my name has been invoked and that of a number of my friends for standing for things that are not true. My name has been invoked by people in this room, by colleagues, about what I believe and don't believe. Well, let me set the record straight right here, right now. Yes, I believe that we should make permanent the Trump tax cuts from 2017. I think that would be good for our economy. I think that would be good for the American people. I think that would help create more economic growth, and I think that economic growth will yield revenue to the Treasury. I believe in what people call dynamic scoring. Some people in this town say that I do not, because what I do not believe in is making up numbers. What I do not believe in is magic fairy dust that says the budget will magically balance if you cut taxes and never cut spending, because that's simply not true. If I come to the floor and this chamber is full and I ask any one of my colleagues to stand up and look the camera in the eye and tell their people back home on C-SPAN or on the news that, for example, child tax credits pay for themselves, or changing certain rates pay for themselves, not one of them will stand up. Yet I promise you that we're going to be facing votes on this floor this year to extend the tax cuts that include, for example, child tax credits and other tax policies that in no way, shape, or form, economically speaking, pay for themselves. And we're going to be told to do that on faith that that revenue and the growth in the economy, or the growth in the economy will magically produce revenue and cause deficits to go down. But nothing in our history would tell you that that's true. How do you think we got to $36 trillion in debt? It was by refusing to do basic math. We're being told, all right, we're not going to touch any kind of reforms in health care and Medicare to drive down the price of health care so that we can save Medicare from its clear insolvency. Social Security from its clear insolvency. It's going to go bankrupt in, 8 years? So we're not going to talk about those things. What we're going to talk about, we're told, extend the tax cuts and then sit around and try to figure out how to cut other mandatory spending, but without regard to whether or not that will be deficit reducing. And I think it's really important for the American people to understand this. There are games being played in Washington right now to put pressure on people to box them in, to box members of this body in. Right now, conservatives in the House Freedom Caucus, often maligned on the pages of publications as being, quote, the right-wing guys. Because oddly enough, we believe in freedom, balanced budgets, securing the border. Yeah, we're the crazy ones. And so the House Freedom Caucus has proposed, put forward a plan to raise the debt ceiling over $4 trillion over 2 years, fund border at $86 billion, the request by the incoming administration and border czar Tom Homan, fund defense modernization at $200 billion plus up, a separate fund through reconciliation so we can modernize our defense, do what we need to do to beat China. And what we're asking for that is to reverse some of Biden's policies, all things that the president campaigned on. Reverse the EV mandate, that's $117 billion. Medicaid work requirements and SNAP work requirements, $120 billion. Undo the student loan bailouts, which are an unfair shift of money from the working population to those who took on student loans. That's $100 to $270 billion of savings. So again, I want to be very clear, because here's what you're going to hear in the coming weeks. The House Freedom Caucus refuses to do a debt ceiling. So reasonable Republicans are going to have to go cut a deal with Democrats to increase the debt ceiling, increase appropriations over our current spending levels, including defense and non-defense, and oh, by the way, give a crud ton of money to California. That's coming. That's coming. And they will try to blame the Freedom Caucus and conservatives like me who dare say, hold on a second. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should come up with another path forward to actually honor our commitments to cut spending and reduce the size and scope of government while we cut taxes, secure the border, and do the things we're supposed to do. So again, we have put forward a plan. We've shared it with our colleagues. We've shared it with the incoming administration. We're making it public that will increase the debt ceiling so that Chuck Schumer can't play games with the bond market, fund border, fund defense, cut some of the disastrous Biden policies to pay for those things the American people prioritize, and in so doing, free up defense to be modernized and built so that when we come to March, we don't have to do what happens every year, where defense hawks sell their soul to the devil to raise defense spending, all driven by K Street lobbyists and the defense contractors in this town who define our defense policy, so that Democrats can get increases in non-defense spending, which is an increase in programs, and our discretionary budget keeps going up and up and up and up. And you keep funding the very bureaucrats that the DOJ folks say they want to cut. So I've got this wild idea. These crazy conservatives in the Freedom Caucus, that maybe, just maybe, we should change the game. Maybe, just maybe, we should take that money, go build our defense through reconciliation, level the playing field, pass either a continuing resolution or spending at the caps that we put in place this last year, hold spending frozen for the rest of this year, go through the appropriations process, let DOJ do its work, cut spending to pre-COVID levels, save about $1 trillion over a decade, do our job to actually deliver on the promises we made, give wins to the President of the United States, give wins to Republicans, unite the party, unite the country, demonstrate that we can do our job. But you know why we can't? You know why we can't do that right now? Because the forces in this town who want nothing but tax cuts and no spending cuts are telling you you can't do it. That's what's happening. The lobbyists, the people in this town, members of Congress are saying we can't cut because there's some program, there's something in Medicaid, there's some reason, there's some excuse. But gosh, we're definitely going to go ahead and reinstate all the tax policies because they read in some book a long time ago that they all pay for themselves, irrespective, by the way, of the Laffer curve or any common sense economics. When I will say to you right now, if any of my Republican colleagues want to come down to the floor and tell me that each one of those tax provisions pay for themselves, I want to see it. Show me that the child tax credits pay for themselves. Now, I'm not saying the child tax credits may not be decent policy. I'll tell you right now, I would love to vote on a bill right now to just eliminate the tax code and zero it out. Maybe we'll do that before this year is over. Maybe everybody will have to put their money where their mouth is. Do you believe in taxation or not? Because if you think you can just freely print money and fund all the things you're too afraid to go back to your district and say that there's a limit on what you can spend, while out of the other side of your mouth, you talk about tax cuts. Let's vote on a bill to zero out the tax code. Because if you're going to constantly live with $2 trillion deficits, which is where we are right now, why not $6 trillion? Why does it matter? Genuine question. Anybody in the complex, feel free to come down here and explain to me why my family, your family, my constituents' families should pay taxes into a system that is designed by this body to bleed $2 trillion plus a year. They keep talking about tax policy that's good for economic growth. Okay, yeah, I agree. I support it. I started this speech by saying I support it. But I don't support it blindly. I don't support it without recognizing our responsibility and our need to cut spending. There ain't no free lunch. You can't make up math. You can't just go blame it on the CBO or blame it on scores. Show the American people the math. And don't go run and hide behind a vote on a balanced budget amendment. Because I promise you, that's what my colleagues will say. They'll say, oh man, we need a balanced budget amendment. Do you think they would follow it? Genuine question. Pass a balanced budget amendment. By the way, when all the people out there on Twitter say Chip Roy's railing against balanced budget amendment. No, I'm not. I'm for a balanced budget amendment. Sign me up. I've co-sponsored it. I'll vote for it. In the odd event we pass it, when it has whatever line it's going to have in it, in an exception for national security, do you not believe that everything will be a national emergency? Do you believe that the insatiable appetite of your members of Congress to spend money on programs will end because you insert an amendment in the Constitution that says we must balance the budget? Because I can promise you every time we hit a debt ceiling, what happens? We're going to raise the debt ceiling. The American people sent us here to actually change things. The American people didn't send us here to keep racking up debt. We're $36.3 trillion in debt. It is piling up around our ears. As my friend David Schweikert from Arizona points out every time he comes to the floor of the House, the interest is piling up. It is going up. We're refinancing our debt. We're paying $1 trillion a year in interest, and that's about to be 1.2, about to be 1.4. It's going to be $2 trillion pretty soon. And my colleagues are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, squawking about what they need to do on tax policy. Again, a policy I support, but without recognizing the mathematical need to have spending cuts at least or more than what you think will happen with respect to revenue when you change the tax policy. The American people expect us to be adults. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You cannot just go straight to the dessert of going home to your constituents and saying, I cut your taxes. Aren't you proud? You can't just get on your donor calls and say, man, I really made sure that your corporate rates are great and we're making sure your capital gains rates are great, and then not do the other side of the work. You got to eat your vegetables. You got to actually do the job. As I said, I will vote to zero out taxes. We didn't have an income tax for the first half of this country's existence. I think that's great. But you know what else? We didn't take on every single issue in the federal government because the Constitution didn't contemplate it. Now we take on all the issues and we don't pay for them. We sprinkle magic fairy dust around here, borrow money, print money, mortgage our kids' future, and pretend to be adults. I do not for the life of me believe that we could actually change this all in a year. This is the last argument I want to blunt, and then I'm going to recognize my good friend from Pennsylvania. I said there are people out there who are saying that I don't believe in dynamic impact of tax policy. False. I very much believe in the dynamic impact of tax policy. Leave money in the hands of the American people. We produce revenue. We produce growth. And that means some additional revenue will come into the Treasury because of that economic growth. Yes. But not all of it. Other people will say, well, gosh, you guys, you want, dollar for dollar, you want to, make sure that there are going to, all these cuts are going to add up to the debt ceiling. No, I just want some common damn sense. Just show me some actual cuts up front. Again, I want to reiterate that House Freedom Caucus, conservatives, have put forward a plan, shared it, that will accomplish the objectives that the very media and our colleagues will say they don't want to do that. They can't do that. Well, we've done it. We've put it forward. Now I want to call on my colleagues, what's your plan? Because we have a plan. And that plan is to deliver right out of the gate. The president gets sworn in on Monday. Let's secure the border. Let's fund it. You want to have a strong national defense that's not woke? Fund it. Do it now. And take it off the ledger on March when we're going to be told that we must eat more spending in government and California money and a $10 trillion debt ceiling increase. Let's do it right now. Let's do the hard work. Let's extend the debt ceiling 2 years, fund the border, fund defense, get the cuts and the EV mandates, put in Medicaid work requirements, all things the American people want us to do, end the student loan bailouts, save money, end bad programs, advance good programs, secure our country, help the president, give him wins, give the American people wins, give us a chance to actually freeze spending in March and in September to stop the growth of the bureaucracy. Let's give Elon and Vivek and Doge the ability to do what they want to do, which is cut the bureaucracy, which they can't do if we keep funding it. We can do that. But if my colleagues are going to insist on putting us in a box and telling the world, because Chip says, you know what? I think we should put everything on the table, all taxes, until we make sure we're getting enough cuts with respect to the tax policy. And then they go out and they have the audacity to go out and say, Chip won't vote for a bill unless there's a corporate tax increase. That's a lie. Anybody who says that is a liar, because that's not what I'm saying. Anybody who says I don't believe in dynamic scoring is lying. That's the truth. What I want to do is make sure we save our country. What I don't want to do is play games. And unfortunately, all too often, too many of my colleagues want to play games. With that, I'd like to recognize my good friend from Pennsylvania, my friend Scott Perry.
Well, I thank the gentleman from Texas. I'm happy to join him. And I'm happy to join him in what I think he's saying, which is what I'm saying is I'm saying yes. Yes to fulfilling the president's agenda, the president's mandate to secure the border. Yes to the president's mandate and agenda to strengthen our military. Yes to the president's agenda and mandate to reduce the cost of living, to reduce the inflationary pressures that printing and creating out of whole cloth, out of nothing, money floating around in the economy, making every single good and service and purchase more expensive. Yes to fixing all that. Yes, as one of the people that, like Chip, are often maligned and, people characterize us, well, you're part of the no caucus. We're here saying yes. Yes, we want to fix it. We don't want to increase the debt limit, but we understand we've got to pay the nation's bill. So all we're saying is, well, as long as there's a plan to stop increasing the ever-increasing debt, we can be on board. And we have a plan. We've offered a plan. And we can be on board with that to not let Chuck Schumer decide what the cost of increasing the debt ceiling is going to be, and not force the American people to keep on paying for things that this government shouldn't be buying, can't afford, and the taxpayers can't afford. We want to do this. We're here to say yes. We're here to save our country, but we're not signing up for fake savings and spending. Well, if you raise the debt ceiling, we'll make sure we grow our way out of it by projecting 3.5 or 4% growth for the next 10 years. Let's quit fooling ourselves. That's not going to happen. Yeah, we absolutely want to say yes to making sure that the American people continue to enjoy the tax cuts that we gave them, that we got, that we secured, that we fought for during the first Trump administration. We want to continue that. We want to secure that. We wish we could have done that then. But since that time, the Biden administration has increased spending $6 trillion. $6 trillion. Somehow, something's got to give. You look at the recent bond market sales. Interest rates are going up. My good friend from Texas already mentioned the fact that every time it goes up 100 basis points, it increases the cost of the debt that we have to pay for. We pay for it here by creating money that doesn't exist digitally. We can't even print it fast enough. And we get nothing for it. All we're paying is interest on the debt. We don't get any new government programs. We don't get any new and better military programs. We don't get anything for it. It's just debt and interest payments that we're paying for things that we bought in the past. All we're saying is, look, if you've got a better plan than we do, God bless it. Let's see it. And let's see the real cuts. We want to, like I said, I'm with Chip. We want to pay for the border. We want to pay for our military. We want to use things like EV mandates to pay for that stuff. Student loan giveaways that aren't constitutional that the Biden administration is just offering. We're saying, look, let's repurpose that money for things that we do need to pay for, like the border and like the military. Let's have some reasonable cuts. Let's increase the debt ceiling as necessary, but only as necessary. We're not even asking for dollar on the debt ceiling. I don't know how reasonable, if you got something better, I'm standing here. Let's see it. But the clock is ticking. The president is inaugurated in a couple days here, and we're supposed to be after this, and here we stand. As far as I know, with all due respect to everybody in the chamber, the only plan I've seen is the one we've offered. So we stand ready to save our country in any way that we can. But the clock's ticking, ladies and gentlemen. I yield to the gentleman from Texas.
Well, I thank my friend from Pennsylvania, and he's right. The clock is ticking. We can't let another legislative day go and another legislative day go in which we don't deliver. The American people expect us to deliver, and we can, and we will. We will deliver tax policy that is pro-growth, that extends what we did in 2017. We will deliver spending cuts if we get in the room and work, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to undo the damage of the Biden administration, for us to go everything that we need to go through to identify the cuts that we can all work through, but we will do it. if we have the willpower to do it, and if we will do math and understand that we need deficits to go down. But what we're saying is, let's deliver right now. Do not risk the border security by pushing it off months into the future.
Well, right now, while we're talking about it, there are criminal aliens convicted of murder in their country, some more than one time, walking around our country, and they're going to stay here until we can deport them. And we're not offering the money to the administration, the incoming administration, to do that work.
Which we could do right now. If the House would act right now, pass the budget, pass the instructions, do exactly what we just laid out, do the debt ceiling increase, do the funding for the border, give it to Tom Homan tomorrow. We could get that out in a matter of a week or two out of this chamber, get it over to the Senate, and by February, they would have money for defense, money for the border, a debt ceiling that is gone, and we would have undone some of the worst Biden policies and paid for all of it. That's precisely what the American people sent us here to do. Instead, this chamber currently is locked in a cycle of talking about what we might do. We have got to move for the American people. That is why we put forward an approach that we believe will work. But it's really important for the American people to understand that what is happening in this town, it's games being played by people who want to try to leverage those of us who want to cut spending. That's the bottom line. There are some of my colleagues, and I'm speaking for myself right here, some of my colleagues who want to attach the border funding to the bills that we're moving forward they don't believe that we will get to the spending cuts that will make those of us who believe we need deficits to go down happy, and they want to try to force us to eat increased deficits in order to achieve the border security funding. I don't think we should play games with the border security. I don't think we should play games with defense. I don't think we should play games with getting the debt ceiling cleared off without giving more power to Chuck Schumer and Democrats to mess with us in March. We can win across the board if we adopt this plan, and I would strongly recommend that we move forward with this plan so that we can deliver for the president and deliver for the American people.
Yeah, I agree with the gentleman from Texas. We don't have much time to do this, and while we talk about, we've also been given a mandate for transformational change. To my good friends from Texas, transformational change doesn't include doing the same thing we always do around here, which is cram a bunch of garbage into one big bill, put one thing on it that somebody has to have, we have to have it, which is border security, and say, suck down all that garbage for the one thing that you need and force the American people to do it too. We don't have to accept bad choices for the one thing that we need. We can have all good choices.
And I would remind people that what happened right before Christmas was precisely that, trying to cram down a bunch of stuff in a big bill. And it met with resounding failure. Let's not do that. Let's make the 119th Congress be about success and delivering on the president's agenda, on the Republican agenda, the agenda we ran on, but most importantly, delivering for our kids and grandkids. A world in which they can actually live, free from worrying about China, free from worrying about debt, free from worrying about open borders and criminals on the streets, and deliver. And with that, I yield back.